Welcome to episode 51 of our series on the surnames of Appalachia and the American South. Please note that I had incorrectly labeled my last video number 52. To make searching for surnames and episodes easier in the future, I'm just adding episode 51 today. So, on today's show, we'll explore the origins and meanings associated with 7 family names found across the region. I hope you'll join me. Let's get started. Number 1, Bain. Bain or Bain. 3 different spellings there. One of my favorite colleagues of all time was an Oklahoman named Tom Bain. Like most of the Okies that I knew, his ancestors migrated to Oklahoma over several generations from central and southern Appalachia. Many of their ancestors had passed through the Cumberland Gap. As we saw a second ago, his surname can be spelled at least 3 different ways. In Scotland and Ireland, where it seems to have originated, it was derived from a Gaelic word for white. As with many other Irish and Scottish family names, members of the Bain clans relocated to England. Obviously, some of them joined waves of immigrants streaming to America. Hence, I wouldn't have received the request, and Tom Bain wouldn't be in Oklahoma. If you don't have a paper trail that leads you back to Ireland or Scotland, you could just simply follow Henry Harrison's example in calling Bain a Celtic surname. Number 2, Cantrell. This surname is well traveled, especially in a religious sense. Cantrell's EL suffix tells us there's a French connection, if not origin. The rest of the name is derived from the word Canter. So putting them together, we have Cantrell, or small Canter. According to Harrison, Canter can refer to a horse's gait. So the first person that received that name must have been quick of foot like a horse. But I'm speculating on that meaning. Another possible origin is suggested by the Dictionary of American Family Names, 2nd edition. It still could have originated in France, and most likely did. Its meaning, though, refers to a little singer. Cantrell is not found among the traditional surnames of Scotland or Wales, but it has been on the Emerald Isle for 600 years. Cantrell started its existence as a name among the Roman Catholics in France. It first changed to the Church of England, followed by the Quakers, Baptists, Methodists, and Presbyterians. A paper trail could be a great help in deciding if your surname with deep Norman roots is Anglo-Irish or English. Number 3, Cristofer. 2 different spellings on that one. When I received the request for Cristofer, I immediately thought of my favorite physician. As I mentioned before, he is Ronald Cristofer in Morristown, Tennessee. That's a free commercial. He's a great orthopedic doctor, and he can help you with other health-related issues. Harrison claims that the good doc's surname is Anglo-Greek, which means that English people picked up a Greek name and adopted it for themselves. It meant Christ-bearer or Christ-tribute. It's interesting to note that St. Cristofer is uniquely not mentioned in the Bible. There's no proof that a person named Cristofer ever lived to become a saint. Although there is a record of there being a canonized saint named Cristofer, there's just no record of the process or who the person was or where he was from. However, before we claim an English-only identity for Cristofer, I must tell you that it has been a prominent family name in Waterford County, Ireland since the 1200s or the 13th century. Cristofer is also a rather common surname in Scotland, and Cristofer is found in Wales and northern Germany. At the end of the day, I can tell you that this surname was introduced into the Isles by educated people who knew about Greek names. But to determine the location of the origin of your line, you'll need a paper trail for that. An Autosomal test might help, but if your family line has been in America for 180 years or more, the family finder function on the test will be of no help. In other words, if all your ancestors came to America before the Civil War, there's a high probability that your closest relatives on the Isles, Europe, Africa, or Asia will be more than distant cousins, let's say 5th distant cousins or more, and will not show up on the family finder functions of Ancestry or Family Tree DNA. Number 4, Black. Black was originally an English name. As one might assume from the use of black as a color, the first people named Black had dark complexions, sort of like the name Morris and Morrison. The adoption of the surname occurred during the 12th through the 15th centuries. The surname arrived in Scotland in the 13th century and eventually went from there to Ireland. Other Irish folk named Duff used it as an anglicized version of their name. Some of their progeny came to America, where it was also common for German immigrants named Schwartz to anglicize their name to black. But don't feel bewildered. Since about 80 to 90% of the Irish men and 50 to 60% of Scottish men carry Y chromosome RL21, you could use DNA to help suss out the origins of your line. Western England and Wales also have quite a few men with that DNA, but its frequency tapers off significantly as you travel east across England. Only about 5% of men in Germany have the RL21 Y chromosome. So, if you have L21 DNA, there's a strong chance that your line started, subject to hanky-panky disqualifications, on the Isles rather than Germany. On a personal note, my Y chromosome is RDF23, a descendant of RL21, so I share a distant ancestor with those folks too. Number 5, Garman. This Teutonic surname made its way into England with the arrival of the Anglos, Saxons, Jutes, and Frisians after 450 but before 1150. Some online sources claim that it arrived in the Isles with the Normans. I don't think so. It originated with the old High German words for spearman. In Germany, it appears as Garman or Garmund. It doesn't appear among the traditional surnames of Ireland or Wales. But there was a monk who lived in Scotland in the 15th century named Alexander Garman. Beyond that one instance, George Fraser Black makes little effort to show that it's widespread across the body land. At the end of the day, I think we're safe in calling Garman an English name, but Garman is German. Number 6, Mason. Mason or Mason, 3 different spellings. Okay, I must admit that hearing or reading Mason reminds me of one of my elementary school principals and canning jars of all things. It also reminds me of the English actor James Mason, who lived from 1909 to 1984. Even though he was in dozens of movies, I best remember him for the 1979 vampire film Salem's Lot. I love scary movies. My favorites are the original Amityville Horror and the first Conjuring film. As a surname, Mason originated as an old French occupational name for one who worked as a mason. A mason, of course, worked with stones and bricks in constructing homes, border walls, and churches. Maybe even roads, I guess, because there were some blocks and bricks made, into roads. The name arrived in the Isles with the Normans, and it was in Scotland by 1180 and Ireland by the 1200s. It doesn't appear to be among the traditional names of Wales, so a paper trail would be needed to track down the origin of your line of Mason. Number 7, Lytton. Litton or Leddon. We have arrived at a surname today that has escaped my personal acquaintance for my entire life. I have never met a person named Litton, so it was fun to research it. I found that it's an old English surname for one who dwelled on a hillside farmstead. It's a toponymic that was taken from places in Dorset, Yorkshire, and Somerset, and even Devonshire. Now, except for Yorkshire, in the northeast, all the other places lie in the southwest of England. Lytton doesn't appear among the traditional surnames of Wales or Scotland, but it has been in County Meath, Ireland since 1420. Members of the Lytton family have been engaged in commerce in the Dublin area, the historic Pale, the area around Dublin, since 1692. Based on this information, I'm confident that Lytton is an English or Anglo-Irish surname. Well, folks, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If demand warrants it, I'll be back soon with episode 53 of our series on the surnames of Appalachia and the American South. Until then, may the good Lord smile on you and yours. Happy New Year. Bye-bye.